The door clicked shut behind William Hart with a softness that felt almost mocking. He stood still, hand resting on the handle, listening. He had come home early without warning, abandoning a meeting powerful people never abandoned. He didn't know why. He only knew that something inside him had whispered, now or never. The house should have greeted him the way it always did, empty, breathless, weighed down by a silence so thick it pressed against his ears. For months, that silence had been his punishment and his companion. Then he heard it. A sound so impossible his knees weakened. A child's laughter, light, unguarded, alive. It echoed from somewhere deep inside the house, followed by the gentle rhythm of humming. William's heart raced as confusion and fear tangled in his chest. That sound didn't belong here. Not after the long nights. Not after the year of closed doors and distant eyes. Not after his 4 boys had retreated into a world where no one could reach them. He took one careful step forward, afraid that any sudden movement might shatter the moment. The hallway felt unfamiliar, as though the walls themselves were listening. With every step, more sounds floated toward him. Soft footsteps, a warm voice telling a quiet story, another burst of laughter. His youngest. He knew it without seeing him. The air carried a scent that stopped him cold. Cinnamon and warmth, like mornings from another lifetime. His chest tightened as memories rushed in. His wife's gentle hands, weekend breakfasts, the way life used to feel before it broke apart. For a long time after her passing, William had believed success could mend what grief destroyed. He had tried everything. Experts. Schedules. Solutions wrapped in impressive words. None of them reached his sons. They didn't cry or shout. They simply disappeared behind invisible walls, leaving him helpless on the outside. William reached the kitchen doorway and froze. He couldn't see inside yet, but the life pouring from that room made his vision blur. Whoever was in there had done something no one else had managed to do. They had brought light back into a house that had forgotten how to breathe. And in that moment, standing unseen in the shadows, William realized something that shook him deeper than fear ever had. While he was busy trying to fix his children, someone else had simply stayed with them. William didn't step into the kitchen right away. He stood there, unseen, as if crossing that doorway might undo whatever fragile miracle was unfolding. From his place in the shadows, he finally saw them. His youngest sat at the table, legs swinging freely, eyes bright in a way William had not seen in months. Across from him sat the caregiver, Elena, moving slowly, deliberately, as though time itself had softened around her. She wasn't instructing or correcting. She was listening. Truly listening. She slid a plate toward his son and didn't say a word. The boy spoke instead. Not much, just a sentence about a dream he'd had, but it was more than silence. It was everything. William's throat tightened as he realized this was the first time he had heard his child speak freely since the loss that fractured their world. He had begged for this moment in quiet prayers he never said aloud. Elena laughed softly at something the boy said, not loudly, not performatively, but with warmth. The kind of laugh that says, "You are safe here." William noticed how she never rushed him, never filled the air when it grew quiet. She let the pauses exist. In those pauses, his son found space to breathe. William felt an ache bloom in his chest, not from pain alone, but from the sudden understanding of what he had been missing. He remembered the experts with their charts and timelines, the constant questions, the pressure to heal quickly. He had agreed to all of it, desperate to see progress, unaware that every push had driven his boys further inward. Watching now, he understood a hard truth: grief did not respond to force. It responded to patience. Elena reached for a box of crayons and set them between the boys who had quietly entered the room. No instructions. No expectations. Just an invitation. One by one they sat. One by one they picked up colors. The room filled with the soft scrape of wax on paper, the kind of sound that meant presence, not pressure. William felt his eyes burn. This wasn't magic. It was something far more powerful. It was someone choosing to stay even when staying was uncomfortable. For the first time in a long while, hope didn't feel dangerous. It felt real. William finally stepped forward, the floor giving a faint creak beneath his shoe. The sound was small, but it carried. Elena looked up first, her expression calm, unstartled, as if she had known he was there all along. The boys followed her gaze. For a brief, terrifying moment, William feared the spell would break, that the laughter would vanish, that the walls would close in again. But it didn't. His youngest hesitated, then offered a shy smile before turning back to his drawing. That single gesture struck William harder than any silence ever had. Elena stood and spoke softly, acknowledging him without shifting the energy in the room. There was no awkward explanation, no rushed greeting. She simply made space for him the way she had made space for the boys. William realized how rare that was. People usually filled moments with noise when they were unsure. Elena allowed them to breathe. Later, when the boys wandered into the living room, she joined William at the counter. He wanted to ask 100 questions but only one escaped. "How did you do this?" His voice betrayed him, rough and uncertain. Elena didn't answer right away. She watched the boys through the doorway, her eyes thoughtful. "I didn't do anything special," she said at last. "I stopped trying to change how they feel." She explained how she sat with them in silence when they didn't want to speak, how she joined them on the floor instead of standing over them, how she followed their pace instead of setting one. "Grief moves like a tide," she added. "You can't command it. You can only wait with it." Her words settled deep inside William. He had been measuring healing by progress, by results, by visible improvement. Elena measured it by trust. He saw now that trust had been the missing bridge between him and his children. That evening, William sat on the floor beside his sons for the first time in months. He didn't ask questions. He didn't offer solutions. He simply stayed. When his oldest leaned gently against his shoulder, the weight felt unfamiliar and sacred. In that quiet moment, William understood something life had taken too long to teach him. Being present mattered more than being powerful. The next morning arrived with an unfamiliar feeling, anticipation. William woke before the alarm, not because of worry, but because the house no longer felt heavy. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, catching dust in the air like tiny sparks. Down the hall he heard movement. Not hurried footsteps or anxious pacing, but the slow rhythm of a day beginning. It startled him how much that simple sound mattered. At breakfast, something unexpected happened. His second son reached for the juice without being prompted. It was a small act, almost invisible, yet it carried weight. For months, the boys had waited to be told what to do, as if choice itself had been taken from them. William noticed Elena watching quietly, offering no praise, no correction. She understood that some moments needed no spotlight. Later, William overheard her in the backyard, sitting on the steps with the boys. She wasn't telling stories or organizing games. She was asking gentle questions that didn't demand answers. "What do you miss today?" she asked once. The question hung in the air. One boy shrugged. Another stared at the sky. The youngest whispered a name. No one rushed him. No one tried to make it better. They simply stayed there together, letting the truth exist without fear. William felt something shift inside him. He realized how often he had tried to replace loss with distraction, silence with solutions. Elena was teaching his children that it was safe to remember, safe to feel, safe to move forward without forgetting. That afternoon, a call from his office went unanswered. For the first time, he didn't feel pulled away by responsibility. He sat on the porch, watching his sons draw chalk shapes on the ground, their laughter uneven but real. He saw now that healing wasn't a straight line. It arrived in fragments, in shared air and unspoken understanding. As the sun lowered, William understood the hook that had pulled him home that day wasn't fear at all. It was the quiet promise that life, if given patience, finds a way to return. The change didn't announce itself all at once. It arrived the way dawn does, slowly, almost unnoticed, until suddenly the darkness had less power. A week passed, then another, and William began to see moments he once believed were gone forever. The boys started leaving their doors open. Shoes appeared by the entrance instead of being kicked aside in forgotten corners. Laughter returned in short bursts, like a language they were relearning. One evening, William came home later than usual and stopped short in the hallway. From the living room came a familiar sound, the piano. Not a full song, just careful notes, spaced far apart. His eldest sat at the bench, hands trembling as if unsure whether the music would accept him back. Elena sat nearby, not guiding, not correcting, simply listening. When the melody faltered, she didn't rush to fill the silence. She waited. And the boy tried again. William leaned against the wall, overwhelmed by a mix of pride and regret. He had spent years teaching his sons to be strong, to succeed, to move forward. Yet it was in these fragile attempts that he saw true courage. Elena had shown them that strength didn't mean hiding pain, it meant carrying it honestly. Later that night, William found Elena in the kitchen rinsing cups. He finally asked the question that had been building inside him. "Why do you stay?" She looked at him, surprised, then smiled gently. "Because someone once stayed for me," she said. "And it changed my life." Her words lingered long after she left the room. William thought about all the times he had believed love was proven through protection and provision. Now he saw another truth. Love also meant patience, humility, and learning to listen. As he tucked his sons into bed that night, One of them reached for his hand and held it tight. William didn't pull away. He sat there longer than necessary, understanding that the greatest work he would ever do wasn't built in boardrooms. It was built here, in the quiet, choosing presence over power, again and again. The morning Elena told William she would soon be leaving, the world seemed to tilt. She didn't say it dramatically, only mentioned that her commitment had always been temporary. The boys overheard. William saw it immediately, the way their shoulders stiffened, the way fear flickered behind their eyes. The old silence hovered, waiting for a chance to return. That night, William gathered his sons in the living room. His heart pounded harder than it ever had during any business deal. He spoke slowly, honestly, without rehearsed strength. He told them that people who help us heal don't disappear from the work they begin. What she gave you, he said, voice unsteady, is already yours. The boys listened. No one ran. No one shut down. The next day, Elena didn't arrive to an empty house. The boys had prepared breakfast themselves, clumsy and proud. They handed her a drawing, 4 figures holding hands beneath a wide, uneven sun. She knelt to their level, eyes shining, and thanked them as if they had given her something priceless. When Elena finally left weeks later, the house didn't collapse into silence. It breathed. The boys kept drawing, talking, remembering. William changed too. He began leaving work earlier. He learned to sit without fixing, to listen without rushing. The company still thrived, but it no longer defined him. One evening months later, William came home early again. This time there was no fear in his chest. He opened the door to laughter he recognized and trusted. In that moment, he understood the truth that had once nearly broken him. He hadn't fainted from shock that first day. He had nearly fainted because hope had returned so suddenly, he wasn't ready to believe in it. And as he stepped fully into the light of his home, William knew that what saved his family wasn't wealth, strategy, or control. It was presence. And presence, once learned, never leaves.